I want to know, what was your earliest memories of music?
Wow. I mean, as a kid, music has always been in my life. It's always been in my house. Both my mother and father were lovers of music. Um, my mom said that my father could sing like Johnny Mathis when he was young. But my
Mhm.
father always had music in his cars. That's when 8-track tapes cool, and
Yeah,
and records. So I've always heard music in the house.
that's good. So, when did you decide that music was what you wanted to pursue?
I never decided it. Music decided it.
Okay.
The funny thing about music is that I was a dancer, really a dancer, or acting. I played trumpet, but when rap happened, I was in Alaska. I was in the Air Force for a year, and I got out in Alaska, and I stayed up there and danced and had a dance group there, and then I created a rap group called Frost.
Okay.
Alaska Frost, get it? And so we did a song called The Battle Beat. You can literally go to YouTube and type in Frost, The Battle Beat, and it'll come up. People posted
Yeah,
it.
and actually, I was doing some research, and I actually came across that song, and I heard it. Yeah.
So it went double wood. It would have been a hit if it would have been good. Uh, and that's how it really started. And then um, the record didn't do well, and the guys that did it was two white guys that did it, and I didn't think they did a good job, and I wanted to start my own label, and that's how I started when I did Rumors. That was the first record I ever did on J Records.
Awesome. So, how did you get connected with Timex Social Club?
Marcus Thompson um, and Daryl Thompson were brothers. I knew Daryl from Alaska, and Daryl was an artist. He painted, and
Mhm.
he knew that I was doing music, and I had came back to California, and he was back in California. He introduced me to his brother Marcus, and that's how I got connected to Timex Social Club.
Awesome. Yeah, because that was a big hit back in the 80s, real big hit. Did it go like platinum or something like that?
Triple, 3.5 million.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was a big song. Yeah. So I know, like after the song, you formed Club Nouveau.
Yeah, because I didn't have a contract with those guys,
Mhm.
and that was my first lesson in business. That friendship and business are different.
Mhm.
So we were friends, but when it came to business, that was um, that was different. And
Mhm.
so they went and signed a contract with someone else. So we were
Mhm.
working on music for them, and but they had signed the deal with somebody else. So that's the music that we use for Club Nouveau.
Okay. So, how did you get connected with Club Nouveau? How did you all form?
Well, Denny and Tommy, Denzel Foster, Thomas McElroy, those were my partners in
Mhm.
starting the label and working on Rumors. It was really me and Denny, and then Denny invited Tommy to the session, and then me and Denny and Tommy started working together.
Mhm.
So Val was like my little sister. I knew Val from her mother and my father were in third grade together. So that's how
Okay.
far we go. And so that's how Val was working with one of the guys in the Timex Social Club, Alex Hill. And that's how me and Val reconnected again. So I was putting Val in Timex Social Club.
Mhm.
She hadn't sang on the record yet, but she was going to on the next records. And before we could do it, it broke up, and they didn't come to her. They didn't bring her as part of the group, so she stayed with me. And then Denny knew Samuel, and we had auditioned a few singers. And then Denny said, "I know this guy. He's a young guy. He was only 19 at the time, 18 or 19." And that's how we got Samuel. So that's how the group. It was really just friends and knowing each other.
Okay, that's good. So, how was the process of you all recording it? Like, what was the experience like?
I mean, it was just it was very fast. We had written the songs, and we were just and it was very creative. Uh, Technology was just starting to change, so we were using drum machines and keyboards for the
Mhm.
most part. There was no band. We weren't a group like that. We hadn't played together.
Mhm.
None of that stuff. We were moving real fast because of the situation.
Yeah,
Situations, you got to take advantage of the opportunity that's in front.
that's good. So I know you've been in, you've done production, you've done writing and all that stuff. So how did you get into production and writing songs?
Just doing it. There's no school.
Mhm.
There's no uh, uh, agency.
Mhm.
You just being around studios, being around
Yeah,
creative people, uh, building relationships with folks, being at the right place at the right time, and just being proactive. So I learned production by doing it, and
Mhm.
I'm still learning production today because it's always changing.
Yeah, that's true. So I know you all were signed to Warner Brothers. So how did you all get connected with Warner Brothers?
Well, when you have a hit record, you'd be surprised at who want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So Rumors was a huge record,
Mhm.
and then of course, the record companies wanted to talk to me. And then when some people found out that Time Social Club had signed to Daniel Records, and that the producers of the Club Nouveau had formed a group, and so I met with everybody. Everybody had called me. Uh, Lil Silas, um, Jerry Griffin, who was at EMI at the time, um, Larkin Arnold, who was at
Mhm.
CBS, and Benny Medina. Benny Medina had just came to Warner Brothers,
Mhm.
and Benny was uh, looking for a group to hang his hat on, to say this is my find, because Warner Brothers already had Al Jarreau and
Yeah.
Shaka Khan and Prince. You know,
Mhm.
they already had hit records. More today. So um, he was really looking for his own,
Yeah.
play. And so he came to me, and he was the only one that flew to me. Everybody else had me fly to them. Benny Medina flew to me, watched me in the studio, and made a deal for Club Nouveau with them.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know it was a deal with Warner Brothers, and I think I saw something with J King Records or something.
King J Records, yeah.
King J Records. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was
before.
like a merge kind of.
Well, what it was a logo deal with my label.
Mhm.
It was before Jimmy and Terry did
Yeah.
theirs. It was before LA and Face did theirs.
Yeah, that's true.
It was before Leor and Russell did their deal. So I
Yeah.
um, uh, predated all of those guys.
Yeah, that's correct. Because I know you had the J King Records, and then Jimmy and Terry later on. They had the Perspective, and LA Reid and Babyface LaFace. So yeah, you started it all.
Yeah.
That's true. So how did you all come up with the choice of songs to release for the album?
Those were the songs that we wrote.
Mhm.
You heard on the album were the only songs we wrote.
Mhm. So
And so
basically basically everything you all.
if I had done it over again, I probably would have wrote triple that amount of songs.
Mhm.
And then but we were just moving fast. But you learn a lot of lessons when you're young. I was 24 years old. I was very young, and I was the oldest.
Mhm.
And I was young for the industry at that time.
Yeah,
The industry hadn't gotten as young as it is now because hip hop wasn't yet the king.
true. Yeah. And you all had your biggest hit, Lean on Me, which I think was it like gold or platinum?
Platinum.
Platinum, okay, yeah. And did you all
Well,
get a Grammy for that too?
did we get what?
Did you all get a Grammy for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so how did you feel about having such a really big hit and actually getting a Grammy? That's big.
I never thought about it. It was never, I do music because I love music.
Mhm.
So of course, you need hit records in order to tour. But I never made a record saying this is going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Until later when you start trying to figure out what the market is, because the market iterates every few years, that you don't know what is, and sometimes it doubles back and you get another shot at it. But yeah, I didn't you're thankful because it opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah.
But it also if you don't have the experience behind you, you can make a lot of mistakes, and I think we make mistakes.
Yeah, because I know the album was big, real big album. So sold a lot of copies.
1.5 million.
1.5 million. Okay, cool, very cool. And I feel like it was like a big album for the New Jack Swing era.
Yeah, I think we were the beginning of what they started calling New Jack Swing. We were the first of the new school and the last of the old school.
Yeah.
I always liken us to the West Coast Full Force, because Full Force was a singing group that did hip hop beats, and sang songs. And I think we did the same thing, just on the West Coast flair. So and we and they on both coasts, I think, were the first of the new school and the last of the old school, where we still used old school elements because that's what we grew up watching and understanding. But the new technology with the samplers and the new keyboards and the new sounds and all the different drum machines were starting to become widely used, which was new, and especially in R&B.
Yes, because I really agree that Club Nouveau in Full Force is like the beginning part, because I know you all released your first album in '86. So I feel like around like '86 was kind of like the beginning of the New Jack era. You have Teddy Riley, who produced for like hip hop artists and stuff. It kind of started a little bit before then, but because you were on the West Coast, so it was more. I call it the West Coast New Jack Swing. Like, everybody looks at the East Coast, but the West Coast had their little New Jack Swing as well. So yeah.
Well, I don't think we called it New Jack Swing. I think the reason why they called it New Jack Swing is because Teddy, I think, listened to the Club Nouveaux and the Full Forces. And Full Force and we were different in our approach to music and how we did music. But I think if there was anybody that was more married to Teddy Riley, it was Club Nouveau.
Yes.
But he added the same thing we did. He added that swing beat. His was always swinging, and that's why they called it the New Jack Swing. But I think we were the first New Jacks for sure. If you look at production and R&B music, it would be Club Nouveau in Full Force.
Yeah, because it was a different sound. All y'all had like kind of like different sounds, anyways. I would consider it New Jack, but it was all just like different sounds. Yeah. And I know you all had like you produced for like some other artists. I've heard some of the other West Coast artists, like Theresa. That's a good album too. Real good album. There was a group, New Choice.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Michael Cooper.
Yeah, Michael Cooper. Yeah, I know who he is too. Yeah.
I did the first Shantae Moore album on Warner Brothers, but it never came out. Brian Morgan, Cachet Devoir, who ended up producing SWV. All those things came about it. Yeah.
And I know there was an artist, Mickey Blue.
Yes.
Was he under your management?
He was under my label. He was signed to my label through EMI. So I had deals with EMI, BMG, and Warner Brothers.
Cool. So I know you were a producer and you managed artists. So how were you able to manage all of that? You were the artist on the in the group. You were producing and you were managing. So you had like 3 jobs. So how were you able to manage?
And I was writing.
And writing too, yeah.
And then I performed and sang in the group.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know what I couldn't do. I didn't know the rules of engagement. of the music business. The music business definitely had these rules in place where a manager was a manager, a role manager was a role manager, a producer was a producer, a songwriter was a songwriter. And I never agreed with that. I think you can do it all.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I've never drank before. I've never been high, never done drugs, you know. So music was my life. And
That's
so,
good.
so
Yeah, it's
every
good you didn't get into like all the drugs and stuff like that because it was a, you know, it was a downfall for a lot of artists back then, you know, drugs and all that stuff. So, you know, staying clean and all that, that was good. Definitely back then. Yeah.
yeah.
And you all released the second album in '88, and you all had like a social conscious theme to it. So what made you all change to the social conscious theme?
That's what I wanted to do. I
Mhm.
just felt like the world was changing. The world was crazy. It was, the drug thing was horrible. The hate thing, you know, just so I just and I love Marvin Gaye.
Mhm.
And so this was my Marvin Gaye record. This was my What's Going On. And I thought, and Warner Brothers didn't want me to do it. They wanted me to make another
Mhm.
commercial record, if you will.
Yeah.
And my contract said I could do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do. And from that time on, I stopped making music to make commercial hits. I wanted to make
Yeah.
music to say what I wanted to say. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, because I love the song "No Friend of Mine." That's a good song. Though that's for the third album. I'm sorry, but you know, it's the second album. The second album, it was a song called "Envious,"
Yeah.
for the love of Francis, and it's
Yeah.
a cold, cold world. Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought For the Love of Francis was I mean, you know, me and Tony Dwayne brought me the song. And I love the idea. And I wanted to really capture what was happening with young girls
Mhm.
and prostitution, and you know, and
Yeah.
how you get caught up in this Hollywood life. Because I'm watching it around me.
Yeah.
Life started like any other girl. Folks thought she'd be the queen of the world. 16 years thought she was grown, packed all her things, and she left home. Put all her dreams in one suitcase. If she was looking for wrong, she was in the right place. A few years passed before it hit, found face down in life's cold pit. Because that's how Hollywood is.
Mhm.
You know, it's a scary life to
Yeah.
when you start chasing this dream, especially for women. And I don't think people were addressing it the way it should have been addressed. And even in my office, even the women that worked in my office, I would always tell them, because there were a lot of women in my office that carried a lot of power, that were in charge of
Mhm.
different divisions and stuff. And I never wanted them to feel like you know, like they were less than, or like they didn't have a voice, so that a man could talk to them in any kind of way. Because the music business is very sexist.
Yeah. And I know for the third album, you all went back to, you know, you all didn't have the social conscious thing, but you kind of went back to the roots from the beginning.
Yeah, well, I used some of, you know, I did "You Ain't No Friend of Mine." You Ain't No Friend of Mine was a joke song, really.
Mhm.
I seen this guy one day who I knew had said some things about me. You know, people were saying I was on drugs. I was really thin, but I was
Yeah.
thin. I was young, you know, and I was skinny. Uh, I was so skinny then, I'm considered to be fat now. So that's how skinny I was. I weighed probably 130 pounds. But this guy, he came up, talked to me, shook my hand, and when he walked away, I was with somebody. I said, "Smiling." They're
Mhm.
always smiling in my face, spreading lots of hate. And he said, "Man, you should do that. That's a hit song." And I said, "You think so?" And he said, "Yeah." And I went to the studio and um, started working on it. And smiling, you're always smiling in my face, spreading lots of hate, thinking, I'm always thinking of my second move. You think I'm gonna lose? And then the song just came out.
Awesome. I know with the group members, Tommy and Denny, they weren't on the second album. And then the third album, it was like, was it like three of you all?
No, yeah, there was me. So what happened was Denny and Tommy left after the first album to start producing records.
Mhm.
Samuel left to go do a solo record. So then Kevin Irving took his place, Curve.
Mhm.
And David Agent, who had played with us on the first tour and wrote some with us, became a member because he was like the sixth member anyway.
Yeah.
And so so on that album, it was me and Val, Curve, and Dave. On the third album, it was me, Val, and Curve. And then on the fourth album, it was me, Val, Curve, and then we added Rock. And Rock was a writer that wrote with me and did some production stuff with me. And then on the fifth album is when Walter came in, the Everything Is Black album. And he came in on that album, and it was me, Val, and Walter. And then the New Beginning album, that was in 95. And then in 98, 99, we did the Collection Volume 1. And that was with me, Val, and Walter. We put some of the old hits with some new songs, some remixes, put that together. And then me and Val and Samuel, who did the first album, we got back together and did the seventh album, the Consciousness album. And then Val and Sam were with me up until 22. And so now it's me, Tirza, and Jay Ali. And we have new music coming out in June, a new single. We're only making singles because the world that we live in is a
Yeah. New age of music. So yeah, I understand that. So how is it, being able to go through all those transitions, like with the group members,
Well, for me, it's cool because it's always, I get to create new sounds, new styles based on new vocalists. The group is called Club Nouveau, the new club. So it's always new. I think it lends new energy to it. Val was the only female vocalist from the beginning up until 22. And then Tirza X this is only the second female vocalist. And Tirza younger, she's 31, 32, but incredible voice, great singer, and performer. Jay Ali is just a monster. He can just sing, anything. And so I think the new music people are gonna like it.
Awesome. Looking forward to the new music. And I follow you on social media, so I'll be able to keep up with it as well. And also you all released a New Beginning after the fourth album, the No Friend of Mine track and all that stuff. And I like the sound on that fourth album as well. It was, it was in the 90s. It was a different sound, but it was that hard New Jack Swing sound for the 90s. I love that album too, yeah.
Yeah, the New Beginning album, I thought that was 92. I thought that was really, we had some really strong material on there, but the music business was changing. Hip hop was really starting to take over. And, you had to be one of the newer groups or a hip hop artist in order to penetrate. And by that time, this is a very fast moving industry. After you're 6 years in it, you're old school to those, unless you keep current with what's happening through the iterations of music.
Yeah, so I know after, with the music and all, you did the music and all that stuff, and then you got into radio. So how did you get into radio?
I wanted to be in radio, so I created an online radio show on Blog Talk Radio, and that's how I used that as practice. I did that for 8 or 9 years, and then I went to KDEE, which was an FM station, 97.5 FM in my home city of Sacramento, as a volunteer because they weren't playing local music, and started on there. And got a lot of sponsors for the show. The show grew, it got big, and it really propelled me in the radio space.
That's good. And I know you're the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce. Any other things you're involved in right now?
Yeah, so I'm the president of the California Black Chamber, the state chamber.
Okay.
So all of the local chambers around the state are under our banner. I sit on the high-speed rail, Caltrans, and Department of General Service, small business councils. And I sit on various councils and boards. I do radio in LA as well, at KBLA with Tavis Smiley Station. I created the Greater Sacramento Financial Literacy Group, which we teach financial literacy, but we also have an investment group. So we invest in pre-IPO company and different ventures. And yeah, just I do everything I can. I think you got to do it all. We live in a world where, you know, life is very short. There's only 8,760 hours in a year. If you sleep 8 hours a day, that's 2,920 of those hours are gone. If you have a job and you work 8 hours a day, that's another 2,920 hours. So you literally have 2,920 hours to live, to be alive, to enjoy that year. And so I try to make the most of all of it. And you're a young woman. And I remember when I was a young man like it was yesterday. But today I'm 61. And it seemed like I blinked and I was 61. So, you know, the older I get, the more I know that I have more to do. And anytime I think about doing something, I start doing it because I want to do it all before I go. There's going to come a time when this body break down and say, nope, you got to go.
That's good. That's a good mindset to have because, you know, we can't take life for granted, you know. You know how people say life is too short, you know, so you need to enjoy it. Yeah. And what do you think about the state of the music industry right now?
Well, I think it's an incredible shape. I think there's some great artists out there. I love Snow Allegra, Lucky Day, and Anderson .Paak is my favorite. You know, Alex Isley. You know, I love a few songs by October London. I think if he did more of the Marvin Gaye sound and stuff with original sound, I would like him even more. But Eddie Suleiman, you know, I'm just Giveon. I'm listening to a lot of different music, and so yeah, I think the industry is in great shape. I think, you know, music is more accessible.
Yeah.
You don't the way the major labels used to control it, they don't necessarily control it. They control it in a sense of you got to have money in order to compete, unless you have ingenuity and creativity and brilliance, you know, in which is something that we should all reach for. But yeah, I think the music business is good. I think, you know, owning your catalog and owning your intellectual property is super important, and that's what's taking place today.
And also, I know you released your album Soulful Bossa Nova in 2020. It had like a jazz sound to it.
Yeah, it's bossa nova music. It's bossa nova mixed with samba and jazz and a little bit of R&B, but bossa nova is my favorite music. Joao Gilberto and Carlos Jobim are some of my favorites, but I love Jovan and Babel and a couple others as well.
Yeah, that was a good album too. I listened to it. Sounds real good. I like the sound on it. And it's good that you went into that lane, you know, the jazz lane. That sound, I like it.
I love music, so I love all kinds of music, and that's just what I prefer for me personally. But Club Nouveau is very hard hitting. It's Club Nouveau sound, and I think people will like the new record.
And also, are you planning on releasing anything yourself soon?
Yeah, I'm working on my next record. I'm going to start releasing videos and different things from the Soulful Bossa Nova album. You know, I'm on a different kind of chart. I'm on a smooth jazz chart, and my song "Baby Let's Dance Tonight" is #5 on the smooth jazz listeners chart. So I'm excited
Awesome.
about it. Yeah.
And what advice would you give like up and coming artists coming up today, like about the music business?
Well, you know, it's a business, and you know, learn the mechanics, understand what intellectual property is, uh, make sure that you own and control your catalog. If you're a writer, you know, make sure, you know, before you sign with a writing society like CSAC, BMI, or ASCAP, check them out, read about them, see what they do, see if they are, you know, if they align with your vision. And, you know, make sure you own and control your publishing. But, you know, and if you, you know, get somebody that can administer for you, that can administer
Yeah.
your publishing, you know, and learn about neighboring rights outside the United States, because there's money in neighboring rights. And licensing outside the United States is lucrative, just like,
Yeah.
you know, especially if you can get a record. Sometimes you get a record that happened outside the United States, and it's, you know, you can promote a record. If you have an R&B record or even a pop record, you can promote a record in the UK for a fraction of what it costs to promote a record in the United States. You know, but really just learn your craft, and learn the way you learn music, learn the business.
Yeah, that's important. You know, especially when you're wanting to sign a record contract, you know, you have to do your research.
Yeah.
And then if you're independent, that's even better because, you know, you have the rights to all your stuff, you know, you do it independently.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes independent ain't so good if you're lazy. You know,
Yeah.
you have great music, and you're not going to do the work.
Mhm.
So, you know, my dad used to say, oatmeal is better than no meal. Sometimes you might have to start off eating oatmeal as opposed to starving.
Well, it was a pleasure being able to do this interview with you. You're a pioneer, definitely. As far as the New Jack Swing era, you know, you're the pioneer. As far as production goes and all that stuff. So, you know, I want to thank you for taking time out your day to, you know, come on here and let me interview you.
No, it was my pleasure. I'm glad to see young people that are you know, in these areas, in this space. We need young journalists and young historians that are African Americans, that are young people that can help tell our story. Oftentimes, our story is told by other people that don't look like us. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that I believe that we get closer to the core when it's spoken in their language and by people who understand the difficulties of this industry at times.
Well, thank you. And you have a real good day.
You too.